This is episode 5 of our travel series, and today the topic is affordable adventures, traveling on a budget. Hello, Sue.
Hey.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm very well. Traveling on a budget. On a budget suggests cheap, not a lot of money.
Trying to spend as little as possible.
Yeah, because traveling can be expensive. Going anywhere, leaving home, and trying to go somewhere new, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So what's the first thing we should think about in terms of traveling on a budget?
Well, the first thing is probably finding how you're going to get there for the best price. So looking for buses or flights that are maybe off season or good offers, that's always a good place to start.
Yes, so flights, you want to try to book your flights as far in advance as you can, because flights are often cheaper the earlier you book them. If you book your flights last minute, it's going to cost you more. So that's a big part of your expense, depending on where you're going. But flights can be a big expense. Transport within the country when you arrive, again, you've got different options. If we take Japan as an example, you can take trains, you can take fast trains, or you can take buses. And there's different levels of pricing for each of those. So if you've got time, you can travel very cheaply, taking buses, maybe even taking overnight buses. For example, an overnight bus from Tokyo down to Osaka. But if you don't have much time, then it's better to pay for the high-speed trains between these cities.
It's funny because when you think about budgeting, well, it's about money. But I think you also have to think about time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes time is money, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. We spend time and we spend money. So you have a limited amount. You have a limited amount of money. You have a limited amount of time. So you need to think about both, definitely.
Yeah, you need to balance. How long can you be traveling? Mm-hmm. How long do you have? And how long do you want it to take from A to B?
Yeah. How much of your 2-week vacation do you want to spend sitting on a bus?
Exactly.
But like I said, if you've got the time, there are cheaper ways to do things. Another big expense when you travel is accommodation, especially if you're traveling for, a week, 2 weeks or more. Every night you're going to have to find somewhere to sleep. And that could cost you a lot. What are your recommendations about accommodation?
Especially if you go to cities, a small hotel. These hotels that are just like a bed and a shower, very, very small, almost like a capsule hotel, really.
Yeah, these are kind of new styles of hotel. People might know the capsule hotels in Japan, very small, compact. It's not a room, it's a box, basically, and you crawl in the end of the box. It's a very strange thing. But something that's much more common in Europe these days is very, very small hotels. As you said, maybe just a bed, and very little space even to put your suitcase or your bag. But if you're there to see the city or to see the place you're visiting, you don't need a huge room in the hotel to lounge around in. You want to have somewhere to sleep, somewhere to put your stuff, and then you can get out and explore the place you're visiting.
Yes, it's not the same traveling to a city that you want to explore than going, for example, to a beach resort where you just want to stay and enjoy the place, right? So you need to think about what is it that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
and you can choose your best option.
Yeah. Okay, so we've arrived in the place we're staying. We have somewhere to sleep, but we want to do stuff when we're there. And if you look carefully, if you take a bit of time, there are a lot of free or even low-cost activities. What kind of things could we do for very little money?
I mean, the first one is just walk around the city. That doesn't really cost you much. And you can kind of get a feel for where you are.
I think that's a really good point. I think many people think that they need to be entertained every minute of their vacation. They need to be doing some kind of activity. They need to be doing something on some sort of tour. But just being in the city, walking around, trying to feel, what is this place like? You know, what are the people like? What are the streets like? What is life like in the city? I think that's a really underrated activity, and something that I very much enjoy. Many cities have free museums, so if you do want to go and enjoy a little bit of culture, learn something maybe about the place you're visiting, very often there's a city museum, maybe even a national museum that is free or maybe cheap to go to.
Yes, those are very good activities. Going to museums. Some other places might be expensive. We traveled around Europe this summer to go into this palace or to go into this other activity. It was a lot of money for two people. So it's always good to know what would be a little bit cheaper, and you enjoy it all the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit of Googling, searching online, you can find where these cheap or low-cost museum options are. London is a great city for museums. Many world-class museums are free to enter. They're supported by the government, and maybe they ask you for a donation, you know, just a few pounds maybe. But if those museums were run as a business, they would be expensive to enter. So if you're visiting London, there's some incredible museums and galleries that you can visit for free. And for many countries, there are a lot of interesting cultural sites, historical sites that you can visit. I remember visiting some places in Mexico, places that have a lot of historical importance, you know, connected to the independence, those kind of things. But also remember that a lot of cities have parks, have open spaces that are free to enjoy as well. And again, being in the park and seeing how people live, what kind of things are people doing. Japan, Tokyo is a great place for that. You go to somewhere like Yoyogi Park in central Tokyo and you see all the different things that people are doing, and people really use the parks as a third place. It's not work, it's not home, it's this third place where they can go and enjoy their hobbies or, you know, spend time with their friends.
Yeah, you can see a lot of people playing their instrument. It's always nice.
Well, it's not always nice.
Sometimes it's nice.
Sometimes you've got people who are beginners with, you know, they're learning the saxophone. It's great. You're learning the saxophone, but they're not very good yet.
But acrobatics, I've seen people just playing some sport.
Theatre. I've seen small groups of people doing theatre in the park. So, yeah, museums, parks, historical sites, those kind of things. There's a lot of activities that you can do at a low cost or even for free.